Hello, and welcome to this video tutorial on how to use the enhanced quote management functionality in Hard Dollar version 13. HD13 gives estimators visibility into which quote groups have changed or may still need attention prior to an award being made. This is particularly important during those last few hours of finalizing a bid when quotations may be coming in from multiple sources and the information needs to be analyzed quickly so that subcontractors or suppliers that are providing us with the most competitive proposal can be selected. Let's look at an example. I'm going to start by opening my training job. Then I'm going to open my quote compare and award form. Let's look at the columns in the quote group area. The first column is the name of our quote group, and the checkbox next to it signifies which quote groups are visible in the compare and award section of the screen. The next column is the award status of the quote group. Complete means that all items assigned to the quote group have been awarded. Let's look at a quote group that is marked as incomplete. First, let's click on the Cost Items tab. Let's select the Sign Work quote group, and we can see that the award status is incomplete. If we look at the displayed quotes over here, we can see that it's because no quotes have been awarded for this particular quote group. Let's award this quote to example sub number 3. Right-click on the quote and select Award All. You will receive a message that says that this quote group has not been reviewed yet and asks you if you want to set it to reviewed. Click Yes. We can see now that the award status has been set to complete. The next column I want to bring your attention to is the Reviewed column. This indicates whether or not the quote group has been reviewed. Additionally, the Last Reviewed column will indicate the date and time when that review took place. Let's go back to the resource items and let's select pipe materials. We can also see here that there's a column for quote last changed, and this will indicate the last time modifications were made to the quote. These fields give us some visibility into how current the quotes in our system are. In looking at our pipe materials quote group, we can see that these particular quotes have been reviewed and awarded. If we want to see the status of all of our quote groups at once, regardless of whether they are cost items or resource items, we can do that by going to the Foundation Setup Data Register. And selecting Quote Group Tags. And this gives us a list of all of our quote groups, along with the associated statuses, review, date, and time stamps of when the quotes were last reviewed and last changed. Close the screen and go back to the quote comparison and award form. Let's say we receive an update to one of our existing quotes. For example, one of our suppliers calls us and says that they want to give us an update to their price and change the price of their PVC pipe on this job from $12 per linear foot to $10.50 per linear foot. We will go through the steps to update that quote. First, open the quote register. Next, open the quote for example vendor number 3. Now, find the item for the 10-inch PVC pipe and change its unit price from $12 to $10.50 per linear foot. Click OK. Close the quote register and go back to the quote compare and award form. Notice that the award status and reviewed status for the pipe material quote group remain awarded and reviewed. However, we see that the pipe materials quote group has been highlighted, indicating to us that something has changed with one of our quotes since we've awarded and reviewed this quote group. I can see that my example vendor 3 is now more competitive than my example vendor 4. The highlighting of this quote group draws our attention to the fact that we may need to re-review these quotes. Let's say we do that and we decide that we want to award to example vendor 3 based upon his quote. Let's right-click and select Award All. Now the only thing left to do is to mark this quote group as having been reviewed. Click the checkbox once to mark it as unreviewed, and now click it again to mark it as reviewed. Notice the last reviewed date and timestamp have been updated. Now let's see what happens when we have changes to our quotes, but we don't want to make any changes to the award. Let's say, for example, that due to an increase in fuel prices, one of our suppliers has notified us that he needs to increase his cost to supply us with asphalt mix for this project. Select Asphalt Materials and deselect Pipe Materials quote groups. We can see the quotes for asphalt materials are displayed. Right-click on Example Vendor Number 1 and select Edit Quote. Now, change the price of the asphalt mix finish from $30 per ton to $38 per ton. Click OK. Notice the red highlighting indicating that something has changed since we reviewed and awarded quotes in this quote group. In this instance, our example vendor 1 is the higher cost vendor, but it does not matter because we've already determined that we would award the supply of this material to example vendor number 2. Since this quote group has already been awarded to the vendor we prefer, all we need to do now is mark the quote group as having been reviewed. Once again, unselect the checkbox for reviewed and then reselect it. Notice the date and timestamp have been updated. For very large quote group register views, HD also gives us the ability to set the review status for all of our quote groups at once. To do so, click on the toolbar button labeled Set Quote Groups to Not Reviewed. You will be prompted that not all of your quote groups are currently displayed, and that this action will affect both the displayed and the non-displayed quote groups. Click Yes to continue. Notice the reviewed status of all of our quote groups has been set to unchecked. We can also set the reviewed status to all of our quote groups to having been reviewed. To do so, click on the Set Quote Groups to Reviewed button on the toolbar. Once again, you are prompted that not all of your quote groups are displayed, and that this action will affect both displayed and non-displayed quote groups. Click Yes. Notice the reviewed check mark in all of your quote groups has been set to checked. As you can see, the HD13 quote management enhancements give users insight into when quotes have changed in the system and can provide tremendous benefit when users are trying to manage multiple changes to supplier and subcontractor pricing during their bid review and closeout process. Thank you for watching this video.